Mr. Michael McBroom is here in our studio. He's the director of Intercollegiate Athletics at West Texas A&M University, a graduate of SMU Dallas. He went on to receive his sports management degree from United States Sports Academy. We are very pleased to have him. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Olympic Games, that's the topic we have. And if you deal with Olympic Games, we just finished Tokyo Olympics 2 days ago on August 8th. Today is August 10th. We saw lots of activity, lots of excitement. Many people were kind of pessimistic, but it came out to be a very good event. Many people all over the world, 194 countries we have, and of course we have more than 194. They all enjoyed it. Anyway, so that is our topic, but I'm going to read few things and I'm going to provide some data. After that, we will get to Mr. McBroom, and he will be talking about, since he's the specialist in sports management, and Olympics are a big part of any country. If you run Olympic Games, basically it's a way to showcase a country. It's a way to show your pride. It's a way to show your infrastructure, wealth, and everything. The ancient Olympics, everybody knows, 776 BC. And modern day Olympics, of course, started in 1896, and only 13 countries competed and they were participating. And Tokyo Olympics are special because we are going through a very special and tough time in the human mankind history, and that is COVID-19. But coming back to Tokyo, I'm going to give you a little bit data. And it is 13 million population. Long time ago, I was there. Metro is 37 million people. And the Tokyo economy, only the city economy is over $1 trillion. I teach all international business courses, and we read about Tokyo and we discuss Tokyo. But the Olympics came out to be a very big event for the city of Tokyo. The Olympics, the total cost is coming out to be a little bit over $20 billion. Of course, London took 15 billion, Rio 13. Sochi was very expensive, 214. It went beyond 21 billion. There's a lot of literature, lot of media talk about Olympics, but very quickly, I want to mention that Financial Times from London, they wrote that Tokyo Olympics need not be a flop. And we all know that it came out to be a very successful Olympics. In Wall Street Journal said that there were only few spectators, but thrill is there. So we all enjoyed it. Japan Times openly wrote that these were silent Olympics. Economist again wrote that it was memorable. But again, there is a publication from Washington, D.C. They said that Tokyo Olympics are the ultimate COVID-19 experiment. Anyway, the sports industry in the global business is $480 to $620 billion industry. It's a truly global industry, very big, extremely popular among people. And there are many sectors of this industry. I just want to read very briefly. The industry is growing, and this is what we discuss in marketing. The industry is growing because of global consumers, convergence, globalization, social media, new technologies. Everything is basically helping the sports industry, and that's why. But when we come back to the United States, and we were discussing with Mr. McBroom, intercollegiate athletics play a very important role in the United States Olympics. It's a secure supply chain. According to Associated Press, yesterday I was reading it, 3/4 of U.S. Olympians maintain college ties. So no wonder United States team, they won 113 medals. That's pretty impressive. But overall, it is very big. It's growing. But back to Tokyo Olympics, it's a very big discussion. And so let's move to Mr. Michael McBroom. Welcome, sir, again. And I will ask you a few questions. And basically, tell us about your observation about the Olympics we just finished 2 days ago.
Yeah, it just finished. Well, first of all, thank you for the honor to be here today and talk about these things with you. It's as you know, I like the business side of sports, and some of the things that you just mentioned, the total revenue, that the type of the annual business that sports is. Certainly, the Olympics, as it comes around, is a huge business, but. And college athletics is as well. But at the end of the day, what makes it a big business is because people love
That's right.
to see people compete.
That's right.
At the end of the day, it's who's better, who's stronger, who's faster. And that's, I think, in this COVID year, what kind of helped me with Tokyo was that you could just sit back and watch competition. And I think we have so much of this other stuff floating around us. And it came down to the competition. And there were some great stories from the competition standpoint. But I thought, from the business side of things, what was different, this was a very unique Olympics, no fans in the stands.
That's right.
But it's also an Olympics that more people in the U.S. have cut the cord to their cable company, and you had to really kind of seek out the different things that were being broadcast by NBC and their various outlets. Did you happen to watch much on the Peacock
Yes.
network?
Not too much, but mostly television.
And so the other dynamic with this is that from the announcing standpoint, you had people that were not even in the facilities announcing. And you see that through COVID, people have been broadcasting from afar.
That's right.
I personally hope that doesn't continue. I think the quality isn't quite as good. But you also had NBC trying to do different things to attract different eyeballs. Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg commenting on highlights on the Peacock network.
Yes.
We've never really seen anything like that before from a rights holder.
That's right.
And but it gained some attention. And so you saw the business side of things trying to do some different things to attract viewers. And I think some things succeeded and other things failed. But at the end of the day, what advertisers want and what fans, they want to see the human interest stories. And I think this Olympics was filled with some human interest stories, obviously.
That's right.
And social stories.
So, as it was written by some media and newspaper that it will come out to be a big disaster or a flop, basically it came out to be a very good success story from marketing point of view because there was a lot of interest I saw on the part of people, and as you correctly mentioned. My second question is, so Olympics are gone. Next time it will be in Paris.
Yes.
And Paris itself is the more heavily visited city in the world. In fact, it's the number one in terms of tourist revenues. And many people visit Paris because of its charm, because of its heritage, because of its culture and all these. So that will come out to be a success story. Of course, by the time COVID will be over, hopefully. But tell us more about the changing sports industry and its issues which relate to markets and media, because media is changing very fast, as you correctly mentioned. TV is no longer there. Of course, it's there, but there are a lot of other outlets which people are using to get to consumers.
That's right. And that's, I think, the rise of sports in the United States, college sports, professional sports, has always been fueled by those media dollars and the broadcast dollars. And I think that's going to continue, but it's starting to get a little more fragmented and then consolidated. ESPN, I think, is probably in the driver's chair right now, at least from the college sports standpoint, with all of the different places that people are now going to get their things. You don't have to pay a cable company $200 a month if you just want to watch college sports.
That's right.
You can pay ESPN directly and stream. That is such a departure from 10 years ago. And I think that continues to grow. You have colleges that have started their own networks, conferences that have started their own networks. This latest deal with SEC expansion with ESPN, in college sports, I honestly believe the two most powerful people in college sports right now are Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, and the president of ESPN.
That's right.
And probably the bankers of ESPN, if we're truly honest. As long as they have, the good bankers behind them to help fund these rights deals, that's where it's going. So I think, some of the changes that we'll see will always still center around these media rights deals. The money is huge. But I also think some people are getting tired of some products. The NFL, I mean, there's been a decline in sports viewership in the professional ranks
Okay.
the last couple of years, modest. If that continues, companies are going to look to do something different. I don't think sports goes anywhere, but there may be reshuffling of what is most popular in this country.
I see. You know, I came to this country in 1980, and Monday Night Football was a very big deal. Now, if we look at Monday Night Football right now, in the last 40 years, the demographics have changed. So if somebody was 15, 18, 20, 21, 22, now they are all into their 40s and 50s. So tell us more about how sports change and how media people follow those trends.
Well, so I was in that same era too. So you're talking Howard Cosell,
Yes.
and they were icons, and that Monday night that everybody in America watched Monday Night Football, right? And then you had Howard Cosell on Saturday night for boxing. It's different now. The media personalities are not the superstars anymore. It's the athletes and the programs, and I guess you would call them the actual the product itself is not necessarily the NFL. The product is the Dallas Cowboys or the Denver Broncos or the Texas Rangers. The products, and those companies have to do an even better job of expanding their customer base, their consumer base, because they used to fight over put me on Monday Night Football.
That's right.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Yes.
Now they want more preseason games. They want on every week, and they want to come to you direct to the consumer and deliver it to you for a direct price instead of $1.60
That's right.
per eyeball. They want to get $10 directly from you. That's how it's changed. They have to grow their market base individually, and they can control where their product is.
Okay. But how about social media? And we are talking about Twitter, and we are talking about YouTube. If you look at YouTube, YouTube is barely 16 years old, and it's still growing very fast. And so, if you look at those avenues and trends, any comment on those new technologies?
Well, sure. We hadn't even talked about social media, so you brought it up. But all of those can be monetized and are being monetized. And you're starting to now see that in college athletics. Live tweeting in a game. People will sit and maybe have the game on their phone or their iPad, but also following the tweets of people that are either in the stadium or athletes or they're actually tweeting in game or product placement in those. So everything has a potential to be monetized and is, and the athletes themselves, the stars of the show, have people that help put them in places to monetize as well. A lot of athletes, as you know, make far more money in endorsements and product placement than they actually do in salaries for playing the game. But you have to play the game to get that other stuff.
Okay.
That part doesn't change.
So where do you put NCAA in these issues, especially monetization?
Right. So that's the big thing in my world right now, right? The NCAA is it is now in a huge transition, probably the biggest transition in college sports in the last 50 years. When I think it was 1984, they broke up the antitrust with TV and allowed colleges and conferences to go negotiate. This is bigger than that. What's happening is, finally, college athletes will be able to make money on their name, image, and likeness. I for one, believe it's been unfair that there is certainly a huge advantage to the education aspect of what's been going on. But as money has gotten so much bigger in college athletics, that for me personally, it's been mismanaged by the NCAA and college presidents to let it get enormous for an educational entity. So I think this will be some reshuffling. Everybody has a right to make an income
Absolutely.
off of their skills.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you're an athlete, you're a banker, you're a marketer, you're a doctor, you have the opportunity to make an income and a living off of your skills. It should not matter whether or not you're enrolled in a college or not. You have value, and in a free market, that value should be rewarded. With the NCAA, that's what's changing now. With the Alston ruling this year, the Supreme Court not only ruled that educational expenses were allowed, but any expenses would be allowed. Otherwise, you have an antitrust situation. So I think the NCAA's role in college athletics gets pushed back to where it really needs to be and focused on the championship side of athletics and run championships. And then there's a reshuffling of the revenue. Instead of more revenue going to colleges and universities, it's going to find its way into student athletes.
So is it going to be like a kind of another incentive so that for athletes? So would it impact on your recruitment that you'll be able to recruit good athletes from all over the world?
Certainly, yes. I do believe that if students have an opportunity at your university and with your alumni to be able to do some endorsements and make some additional money, certainly I think you have a recruiting advantage. A school like West Texas A&M in Division II, those changes and advantages are going to be far more subtle than, say, in Alabama versus
That's right.
we'll pull a Texas State. Alabama's a very different beast, and it's more the SEC, and those schools are more like the NFL formula. And certainly, football players and basketball players in those leagues, where they're already signing deals worth millions of dollars, and you have high school kids that are leaving early to be able to capitalize. It is a recruiting advantage if you have an institution or a college athletics program that's associated in a community that values that program, and there are certainly business opportunities. But I would say the same thing if you have a robust internship program or you have an 80% placement rate of your graduates. Those are recruiting advantages as well, because at the end of the day, college athletics, especially for a place like ours, is about using your athletic ability to fund or partially fund your education so that you can go get a good job. And I think at West Texas, we do a tremendous job of that.
Wonderful.
And that's thanks to
Yes.
you and your peers. And
Yes, thank you. So let me turn this discussion a little bit to WT. After that, we come back to Olympics again. So tell us, in the last, under your leadership, a lot of good things have happened. I've been here over 30 years, and you have been here for a long time. Would you like to comment on any athletes? In fact, I was reading somewhere, or somebody was telling me, there was one athlete who was competing in Tokyo. He was from Africa. Yes. Would you comment on
yeah,
that?
we actually had two competing this year in Tokyo. One, Ben Azamati, is from Ghana.
Yes.
Was on the it was a 100-meter sprinter, and also on their 4x1 team. And then Raleigh Caputin from Papua New Guinea was a long jumper. And Raleigh finished 19th.
Wow.
And Ben just narrowly missed the semifinals in the 100, but the 4x1 team made the final.
Wonderful.
And I think finished 6th or 7th at the Olympics. So, for us, very, very neat to have our students compete in the Olympics.
Okay.
And I think you said 113 medals won by NCAA athletes.
113. Yeah. So, in the last 10, 15 years, we are seeing a lot of athletes coming from other countries, especially Africa. And so tell us, how do you attract those so they end up at West Texas A&M?
Well, the academic programs are great.
Yes.
The facilities we have here are great.
And cost.
And the cost is fantastic.
Yes.
It's all about relationships. We have coaches that have been here for quite a long time that have spent considerable effort building relationships overseas, and we have our alumni that have come and had a great experience. They've been able to win and get better, and they continue to refer people to us. And I think it's one of the things that's maybe lost in the Olympic story is we do attract a lot of international student athletes as a country to come to our colleges and universities. And here, and I would say particularly for our student athletes that come from Africa, a lot of them have access to better training and nutrition and strength, and they can come here and get better.
I see.
And then they go back to their countries and they parlay that knowledge into the athletic programs back home. And I think but that results in NCAA athletes in the Olympics.
That's right.
Which, if you look at all of the athletes competing at the Olympics and the number that are affiliated with NCAA programs, and then U.S., whether international or not, it's a huge impact. And I think you called it the unlimited supply pool.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and but overall, but California is a very big provider in terms of athletes. We are looking at some of the top schools, and they compete at in NCAA, but they also go on to Olympics. Do you see any trends in future? The way industry is changing, do you think more and more universities in track and field they will become more competitive beyond California?
Oh, certainly, yes. California has a draw with the weather and resources out there, but I still, you look at some of the schools across the South now that have been uh, becoming pretty dominant in track. Texas Tech, just down the road, national champion track program in Division One. We've won Division Two a couple of times. Pittsburgh State and Kansas. Now you can just kind of go across. A lot of it has to do with weather. Again, a lot of it has to do with affordable costs,
That's right.
and certainly the coaching.
So these changes are happening very fast.
They are happening, and they'll continue to go. And I think in some of the emerging sports, I think we'll continue to see more and more success at U.S. colleges and universities with the emerging sports.
I see. Before the interview, we were discussing this issue, and it has been discussed in Wall Street, Financial Times, and every media outlet. South Asia is a very big region in terms of population. India is 1.1 billion. Pakistan is reaching 240 million people. Bangladesh is also very big. Unfortunately, we do not get any medals. I think this time we had only one medal from South Asia, or maybe two. Do you think these things may change in future? Because this can be an eye opener for these three countries. And do you think they may spend more money in South Asia to attract athletes, especially in track and field?
Well, I would hope so. When as I mentioned to you, when I heard that the gold medal for India
Yes,
was the first gold medal in the history of the country,
since 1947.
I was shocked.
Yes.
I was shocked by that because of the population. So the answer to your question, I think, is success breeds success.
Yes.
And so if there are young people in India that saw the throw that won the gold medal and they get inspired to do that,
Yes.
so then investment starts to come in because again, it's the very basic deal of sport.
That's right.
People like the feelings, the emotions. People like to invest in that and grow. I think there's a huge opportunity
That's right.
in that part of the world to invest in things like track and field, and if the young people want to
That's right.
compete in those things. You saw growth in basketball
That's
in
right.
China
Yes.
starting through the 80s.
Yes.
Nobody would have ever thought that, but the Chinese now put out basketball players in good teams.
That's right.
And so that's my hope because it's to me, from an athletic perspective, there's a huge talent pool there that's just waiting to have some investment go into it.
And population is very big.
Population is very big.
Now, in hockey and cricket, they do very well. In fact,
Yes.
they compete head to head with England, Australia, New Zealand, all the countries.
And that's field hockey? Is
Yes,
it field hockey?
and cricket, of course.
cricket is huge.
But interestingly, Afghanistan has improved a lot. And some of these kids, they grew up in refugee camps and they went back. And Afghanistan is becoming a powerhouse in cricket. Of course, they are not as good as Pakistan or India, but give them 15 more years. And they are already competing at the World Cup. And but New York Times wrote a very interesting piece other day, and I was looking at that. They used two words: systematic support. And systematic support is well planned, and it's very big in Europe, Germany, England. I mean, that's why England they had some of the top, swimmers and jumpers. But how do you relate systematic support? What do you see happening in this country? Because facilities are great, infrastructure is well established, of course, in South Asia and Africa and many countries. Systematic support may not be there. So, do you see any changes on the part of IOC so that they can maybe encourage in those countries and bring some top athletes?
Well, I would hope that the countries take it upon them to figure it out. If it's important to a country, and certainly, I mean, the IOC, you say what you want about sport organizations. That IOC's had lumps, NCAA's had lumps. They all have lumps. But at the end of the day, the countries need to decide if they're going to make the investment and find out where that's coming from. The United States, we're fortunate where we are today, but it has not always been that way. I mean, it's, if you go back 70 years, there wasn't a lot of significant infrastructure investment into youth sports.
That's right.
That changed. Youth sports today is a huge business. In fact, it's starting to detract from colleges and universities. And I also think, to a certain extent, impacting the competitive desires of American kids. That's probably a topic for another day.
Absolutely.
But, youth sports from the age of 10 to 18 in the U.S., that business is gigantic now. And there's a lot of, and they play so much, it's almost like losing doesn't matter anymore. That's impacting the competitive ability.
That's right.
I think we need to draw back a little bit on it, and I would love to see developing countries invest more. I mean, India, I'm sure, has a very good infrastructure for cricket and the things, the popular sports. I don't know about track and field.
But most of these kids, we see them playing in the streets. And same in Pakistan and same in Bangladesh. I mean, with the tennis ball, they take that tennis ball and make it wet, and it becomes very heavy. And with the simple, simple things, it's amazing how those kids, then they grow up and they become top athletes from small villages. Right. And same applies to Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. And then you see them, some of them play in IPL or PSL. Pakistan also has its own Premier League, and it's doing very well. Of course, we have one in Caribbean, and Bangladesh has one. I mean, all over the world, cricket has become very big. But
it's fun to watch.
Yes, yes.
I enjoy it.
Yes, and we live in Canyon, 10 miles from the city, and we have this Dish Network, and through Dish Network we get cricket. It's 24 hours. Now, I mean, it's unbelievable how the world is changing. And we pay like $15, $20
right.
per month, and I can watch what's happening in Pakistan, and I can watch, other cricket matches. The same with hockey, and so the world is changing very fast.
This may shock you, and not unlike, I don't spend, because my life is sports, I don't spend a lot of time watching football and baseball on TV here. But interestingly enough, I've kind of gotten in tune with English Premier League soccer, and I can get that.
That's right.
Through my Hulu deal, and I can watch games that are a little bit different than what I normally do. But I follow teams now.
That's right.
From the English Premier League that.
So how do they create athletes in Europe, especially Germany and England and Netherlands, because they don't have NCAA like us.
Right.
But do they have another version of NCAA over there?
Well, so for the soccer side of things, they have what they call academies.
Yes.
And it's actually very similar. If you pull away the names, club, team, college, whatever, you have academies that work your way up. And it's similar to our baseball system, where you have minor league baseball and 1A, 2A, and work your way up. That's what the European soccer.
And the Indian county cricket is also very well established, and they also have a pretty good supply chain. And then some of these become top players, and Australia has, I think, the same deal. Right. But so coming back to Olympics now, do you see any big time changes in the pipeline, like after 4 years when we are going to go to Paris? And because next Olympics are going to be, I believe, Paris.
I don't know that I foresee any big changes with the Olympics. I can tell you what I would hope to see, but that's not what this is about. I think that I'm excited about Paris. I've never been to an Olympic game, but we are talking about maybe doing Paris. I do foresee that there are probably going to be some transportation issues and housing issues. Yes. It's going to be congested, but I also think that type of environment creates for a very memorable experience for the athletes. I hope that we're done with COVID.
Yes.
We get people back in the facilities and cheering on their countries and their favorite athletes, and and honestly, paying money and driving revenue for the business of sport, because that's what at the end of the day makes all these dreams happen.
And do you see any changes in terms of technology? Because sports is always impacted by technology, especially social media. But beyond social media, training, athletes training, do you see any big trends, technology coming in?
Yes, it's actually happening now. In fact, I was in a meeting yesterday. A lot of investment is going into the biometric side of things and helping to train athletes. So, the sensors that golfers have used to figure out the swing are now being applied to other sports to figure out the biomechanics of things to be more efficient in your skill set or whatever your sport may be, and equipment. The technology and equipment is changing rapidly in all sports, and the things that we can do with the different materials now, like baseball bats, gloves, basketballs, the different golf, just a few of the things. I think that drives it. The media side of things, I think, continues to evolve to on-demand, and more content on-demand stats. The camera angles, well, there's technology now in certain stadiums in the NFL. On your phone, you can pick which camera you would like to watch the replay yourself.
That's right.
I think that that'll be broader, perhaps even in Paris. Deploy that technology at the Olympics, where you can actually choose the angle of camera you would like. We could almost do that here at Buffalo Stadium.
Oh, wonderful. Any comments on your new stadium, which was started last year, 2 years ago?
2019. Yeah, no, we're looking forward to getting back at it this year with a full house. It's just it's an intimate place to watch a football game, and we're very proud of it. And I think that's the more intimate experiences now. I think we're not going to go bigger.
That's right.
In sports. I don't think you're going to see the 120, 150,000 seat stadiums anymore. I think the trend now is to get smaller, more intimate. It's that supply and demand thing. If we have fewer seats, we can charge more money, and we don't have to clean as many restrooms.
Yes.
I think that the trend is going to go that way. Fewer seats in person at a higher premium price.
And it attracts students also.
Yes.
Recruitment wise. Wonderful. Few other questions. Just a few other comments. I have data analytics, because I teach marketing strategy, and in other international marketing, I use these topics. Any comment on data? Because I remember some years back, English cricket team lost, and when coach faced the audience, and especially news media, they asked him, so coach, tell us what went wrong, because I think it's about like 10, 15 years ago, English team had some big problems, and they were going to leave. They did not make it to the finals. So coach said, made a very wonderful statement, and I was pretty impressed. He said, I cannot comment on anything, but I need to first look at my data. So data protect lives, as we all know. In COVID, we saw that.
Yes.
And everywhere you go, you would like to see the data. In sports and exercise science, data has become very big, and it's become very technical. Silicon Valley is involved from south of San Francisco. Any comment on that?
Yeah, no, data drives it all. Knowledge is power, and the knowledge fuels decisions. Even with what I do on a daily basis and running our athletic program, I use data. When I'm hiring coaches, I have data.
That's right.
When coaches analyze the performance of their team, they're using data. It's huge, and from a marketing standpoint, you have to know who your current customers are and what their profile is, and you have to take that profile and start to mine for others. And I mean, it encompasses every aspect of sport data.
So which events may require more data? Dealing with NCAA, and especially, which events or which categories?
Well, baseball is very data driven in terms of, and a lot of that now is video analysis. If you have enough video on a hitter, for example, if you know where to put the ball, If a pitcher knows where to put the ball, he's got an 18% chance of hitting it to right field, and it's going to be in the air. I mean, things like that. That type of data is prevalent now in sport. Volleyball hitting percentages, attack percentages. It's all even in soccer. It's just all over the place. We monitor heart rates. We monitor oxygen intake, and so we know when our students are performing at their best. We know how to taper in track and field. We know how to taper down based on the data we have through the training sessions to get ready to peak at championship events. We also know when to send out texts and emails to sell tickets, and how much, if we send out an email to this group, we can generally gauge within $500 how much revenue that will generate.
I see.
If we follow that process. It's all data.
Any suggestions to our audience? Any forthcoming changes happening which may be a very big, creating a big impact nationally as well as NCAA?
Yeah, I think follow the evolution of college sports at the highest level will eventually make its way down all the way through. I'm excited about the changes that are coming.
Okay.
Some are not, but I think it's going to be good for the business of college athletics. I think it's going to end up being very positive for the student athlete in college. I think it'll be kind of a reshuffling, and pay attention to that. But most importantly, if you're an alum out there, come see a game and support what's going on, and cheer on your team. And I think we're going to get more back to that grassroots thing.
Okay. How about your football team? Have you made any big inroads sending some athletes to professional side?
Well, we have a history. This school has a history of sending a number of NFL players and Canadian Football League players. We have a couple of prospects on the team right now. Could go on. I met with the football team the other day, and we have some nice young men on the team that I think are ready to get after it this year. But we have. I think we just going into a distinguished alum that I got the email on is one of our former players who played in 2 Super Bowls for the Baltimore Colts.
Wow.
Jerry Don Logan, and he's now down in Granbury, Texas, but distinguished alum from back in the '60s. And I think you probably know we have dozens of former professional wrestlers, and we have a couple of basketball players playing overseas now.
That's right.
Doing quite well, and Germany and Australia, and so it's been good.
Wonderful. And I hope, after 4 years, we see some of WT athletes competing in Paris.
That's the hope.
And, because if you had these two guys in Tokyo, then I hope, we are able to attract some more, because it brings a wonderful opportunity.
It does.
And visibility.
And I would love to be there cheering them on.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Michael. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And you educated us, and you gave us a lot of information. And Olympics are not going anywhere. It's a very big event. But I hope, the pipeline is still there. But I also hope that countries do something in South Asia and Africa to bring more athletes, to train and to groom and to, find new athletes. And because these athletes can also be very good role models for the public and for all the youngsters. But thank you again, and we
Thank you so
appreciate your
much.
time.
Yes.
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.